Thank you so much for being here today. We are so excited to be talking about and preparing to implement this aspect of our Proposition 63 efforts. I first just want to thank Governor Newsom, who was a champion on Prop 63, not just in his willingness to take California's leadership on gun violence prevention to the next level, to the cutting edge of what is possible in preventing gun violence. As we know, California is setting the very leading edge of how gun violence prevention and regulation can work in this country. We've passed more regulations than any other state, and when other states are looking for ways to prevent gun violence, they look to California. So passing Prop 63 and the regulations contained within it allow California to continue setting that standard that others can follow. What we're talking about today is the aspect of Proposition 63 which deals with background checks on ammunition sales. We know that if you are a prohibited purchaser, you cannot have a firearm in the state of California, and you are also not allowed to have ammunition. However, there hasn't been any mechanism in place by which we can restrict the purchase of ammunition and ensure that those that should not have their hands on deadly ammunition have an easy way to get it. They were able to get it through online sales, delivered to their very front door like a pizza, with no background check or any kind of regulation whatsoever. In fact, interestingly, some researchers, in looking and trying to understand California's loopholes, looked at 10 gun dealers in Los Angeles over a 10-month period, and they took all the purchasers of ammunition from those gun stores over that 2-month period and cross-checked them with law enforcement, and found that of those gun purchasers in a 2-month period, 10,000 rounds of ammunition had been sold to individuals who are prohibited from having guns or ammunition. So we know for sure that this is a necessary step to keeping these deadly items out of the hands of those who shouldn't have them. The way that this law works is that if you already have purchased a firearm, you go to the gun dealer or ammunition dealer. They run an instant check on you. If you've already purchased a gun, your name is in the system. They make sure you haven't become a prohibited purchaser through our apps database. And for $1, you get your background check passed, you buy ammunition. If you've never bought a gun, you can either acquire a certificate of eligibility, which lasts a year, or you can acquire a one-time basic eligibility passage to buy ammunition. So it's a very simple system. We also want to give a lot of thanks to DOJ and AG Becerra, who's behind me here, who has been not only ensuring that all of these regulations are implemented smoothly, but that to the extent there's any challenges, that they are being properly defended in the courts. So we are grateful today to see this aspect of Prop 63, which we worked on and co-sponsored with Governor Newsom in 2016, finally fully going into effect and showing that California can continue leading the way in smart regulations that reduce gun violence. And as our namesake, Gabby Giffords, always talks about, having the courage to step out even when you're the one out front on the ledge. We know that Governor Newsom does that. We certainly are happy to stand by his side, and I thank you all for being here today. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Amanda Wilcox with Brady, California, United Against Gun Violence. Thank you all for being here. So Brady, California has long sought to reduce easy access to ammunition by criminals and other people with dangerous histories. However, ammunition sales have been virtually unregulated in California. The buyers and sellers of ammunition are unknown, and there has been no ability to prevent individuals who, under existing law, are prohibited from purchasing firearms and ammunition. There's been no way to prevent them from buying ammo. Dangerous individuals armed with illegal guns can easily purchase ammunition in California. I personally began working on legislation to regulate ammunition sales in 2007. And finally, because Governor Newsom pushed the policy with Proposition 63 in 2016, ammunition sellers in California are now licensed, and the background check processes will be in place shortly. This process, as amended by Senator DeLeon, will go into effect in a few weeks. Brady, California supports these policies because people prohibited from owning a firearm should not be able to buy ammunition, period. Moreover, a prohibit a person attempting to buy ammunition is a sign that they likely possess an illegal gun. The ammo background check system will enable the identification and investigations of those with unknown illegal guns, including ghost guns. I care about this issue because of my daughter, Laura. In January 2001, Laura was home on winter break from college and filling in as the receptionist at the Nevada County Behavioral Health Clinic when a client came in and opened fire. He shot Laura 4 times at point-blank range, killing her instantly. When his rampage at the clinic and a nearby restaurant ended, 3 people lay dead, 3 were severely injured, a community was left shaken, and the world was diminished by the loss of an incredible young woman. Laura, bright and beautiful at age 19, had extraordinary kindness, capability, and spirit. She was an outstanding student graduating as high school valedictorian and was at the time of her death a sophomore at Haverford College and in the midst of her campaign for the student body presidency. Laura was already living a life full of service. She wanted to make a positive difference in the world. She had unlimited possibilities and the brightest of futures. The person who killed my daughter was later found to have a house full of unregistered guns, assault weapons, and thousands of rounds of ammunition. He was a troubled man in crisis. Had there been any kind of investigation, I believe that Laura might be alive today. Laura's death turned my life upside down, just as it does for every other parent whose child is shot, whether they live in a rural county like I do or in our urban impacted communities. We need to stop the shooting. The regulation of ammunition sales is long overdue, and Brady, California is very pleased that our state will soon have background checks on ammunition purchases in place. We are extremely grateful to the governor for his leadership on this and other gun violence prevention policies. And I would now like to bring to the podium Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, our new Surgeon General for the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. The research demonstrates that gun violence has a profound effect on our communities. Nearly half of California's violent deaths involve firearms. In 2017 alone, the California Department of Public Health's Violence Prevention Initiative reported over 1,500 homicides and 1,600 suicides involving firearms. Over 72% of homicides in California involve guns. That's more than 2 times of all the other mechanisms combined. And there were more firearm-related deaths than opioid overdoses in our state in 2017. Health experts now understand that the impact of gun violence is not limited to just the individual who is injured or killed. It impacts the health of witnesses, families, and friends, the entire community. While many of us may be aware that witnessing or experiencing violence increases the risk of mental health issues such as depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, sleep and eating disorders, and suicide attempts, it's important to know that exposure to violence also increases the risk for chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease, lung disease, diabetes, as well as infectious diseases such as HIV. Exposure to gun violence can cause the body's natural stress response, the fight or flight response, to become overactive, leading to a condition known as the toxic stress response, which affects the functioning of the brain, immune system, hormonal systems, and leads to increased risk of infection and chronic disease. The greater the adversity a person has faced in their lifetime, especially during the critical developmental periods of early childhood, the more vulnerable their brains and bodies are to the harmful effects of violence. In fact, we now recognize that childhood adversity is a significant risk factor, not only for becoming a victim of violence, but for being a perpetrator as well. And California has taken bold strides to invest in prevention, In January of 2020, we will be implementing routine screening for adverse childhood experiences for all children and adults on Medicaid so that we can do the early detection and early intervention that gets to the root of the root cause. And the governor has included $40 million in this year's budget to pay providers to screen for trauma and understand how to respond with trauma-informed care. At the same time, the steps we take today to reduce gun violence will reduce trauma and toxic stress in our communities. Reducing the rate of gun violence in our state is a public health priority. This is an issue that impacts the health and well-being of all Californians, our families, our neighbors, coworkers, schools, and communities. The consequences of violence are costly and significantly influence health, mental health, educational, and social outcomes throughout life. As California's Surgeon General, I am committed to marshaling the insights and energy of medical professionals, scientists, public health experts, public servants, and everyday Californians to solve our most pressing public health challenges. Now is the time for prevention so that we can change the odds and transform outcomes for the next generation of Californians. It's now my pleasure to introduce former State President Pro Tem Kevin De Leon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harris. Buenos dias. Good morning. It is a privilege to be here with Governor Gavin Newsom, Robin Thomas, Amanda Wilcox, our Surgeon General, Dr. Harris, and of course, our Attorney General, Javier Becerra, to celebrate the implementation of California's absolutely historic gun safety initiative. In this nation, even in our very own state, gun violence has reached epidemic proportions. Every day, an average of 100 individuals nationwide are killed and hundreds are injured or wounded by a gun. Every year, some 1,700 teens, our own children, die by gun homicide. Too many parents are being forced to bury their children, and too many children have to grow up without their parents, all because Republicans in Washington, D.C. have failed to muster the courage of their convictions to pass sensible gun control measures at the national level. So we push for the strictest, toughest gun safety measures in the nation in hopes that other states would follow in our footsteps. We act because we have no other choice. We act because our children are dying in the streets and behind closed doors. In 2007, right around the time when I was elected, I remember there was a young girl, I should say 2006, Churupa Wungswisteri, who lived in Angelino Heights, adjacent to Echo Park. This was a beautiful little 9-year-old Thai immigrant girl. She was in the kitchen playing with her mother, jumping up and down like a rambunctious little child, and all of a sudden she fell to the ground. Her mother was washing dishes and didn't realize that Churupa was just shot by a bullet that hit her temple. Churupa passed away just a few weeks right before Christmas of 2006. Every year I spent here in the legislature, I worked hard on this issue with my colleagues in the Assembly, in the Senate, and with then Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, now Governor of the great state of California. And in those years together, we passed common sense solutions, restricting access to military-grade weapons, banning the sale of high-capacity magazines, cracking down on untraceable ghost guns. Any product that has the ability to kill and maim a human being, disfigure and paralyze them, should not be sold without regulation. That includes, obviously, ammunition. We already regulate the sale of firearms, and as the doctor just mentioned a few moments ago, the vast majority of murders that take place in California and throughout the nation are caused by handguns, not AR-15s or Kalashnikovs, but they're done by handguns. We even regulate the sale of cars, alcohol, tobacco, even vapes, and cannabis. But none of those items are expressly designed to kill or maim a human being. Ammunition is the oxygen that fuels the violence we see in our communities every single day. And our law enforcement needs to know who's buying it. Our law enforcement needs to know who's selling it. The background system we put in place with Proposition 63, along with the efforts of the legislature, will close this massive loophole once and for all, without the burden on those who buy ammunition, because the system we put in place with the governor will run background checks instantaneously at the point of sale. It is really amazing that such common sense, this is such a common sense logical step to screen people who want to buy ammunition, and can seem like such a large political lift. But California never backs away from a challenge. We always move forward. I want to give a very special thank you and a recognition to our governor, who had the leadership and the courage of his convictions to lay it on the line when he moved forward Prop 63. I want to thank also to and recognize Attorney General Javier Becerra. We worked on these issues since Arnold Schwarzenegger to Jerry Brown, but this chapter is finally closed with the leadership of Gavin Newsom, who's finally making this move forward. And I want to thank you very much, Governor. I want to also give a special recognition to then Attorney General Kamala Harris, because we worked very closely with both of them as well. We will keep moving forward, and I thank the leadership of our Governor and Attorney General. With that, it is with great pleasure that I bring up my congressman for the past 20, 25 years, former leader of the Congressional Democratic Delegation, and our Attorney General, Javier Becerra.
Senator, thank you for that reminder, although I'm very happy to be where I am right now. I think it is crucial to be standing here with all these leaders who have made gun violence prevention a priority. When things get done, it doesn't just happen. It happens because people propel them forward. And certainly Gavin Newsom, before he became governor, understood the importance of propelling this issue forward. And now as Governor Newsom, he is continuing to show leadership. But along with the governor, it is all the folks that have already spoken that have made it possible, because for years we've tried. Remember that in Congress, they're still trying to enact a measure that would let us check people who were trying to purchase weapons. California passed that law in 1993. And so you begin to realize how important it is to stand here with the folks that are behind me. These things don't just happen. It takes real leadership, and I thank each and every one of them for what they've done. You don't need to look too far to see how violence from guns affects all of us. As Senator De Leon mentioned, and if today is an average day, as of the beginning of this press conference at 9:30, some 38 Americans will have already died as a result of gun violence. And more than that will have already been injured by guns, just by 9:30 a.m. on June 25th, 2019. Gun violence devastates not just our communities, it devastates our homes. It devastates our schools. It devastates our workplace. There is no question that we needed to take action. There is no question that we had to propel Prop 63. We've seen what requiring background checks for guns does. It works. If we hadn't been doing this, millions of purchases would have been accomplished. That should not have been. In the time that we have been checking for weapons through this universal background check in California, we have had some 230 million checks. More than 1 million checks have resulted in the denial of the purchase or transfer of a weapon. That's good news and bad news. Good news that less than 1% of those checks have resulted in denial. Bad news in that the ones that have resulted in denial constitute more than 1 million people trying to purchase a weapon when they shouldn't have their hands on it. There are still ways for convicted felons, those who are dangerously mentally ill and who commit domestic violence against our loved ones, can work around the system. They can still buy guns illegally. They can still try to assemble and manufacture their own weapons, known as ghost guns, with unregulated precursor parts. Or they can illegally use guns which they purchased before becoming prohibited individuals. Until now, those people could buy bullets and put those guns to use, no questions asked. Prop 63 will help close this loophole and prevent ammunition from getting into the wrong hands and being put into the wrong guns. Prop 63 also gives courts and probation officers the opportunity to disarm persons who are prohibited due to their convictions at the time of their conviction, not once we have to go chase them throughout the state of California and find them. With these new laws for acquiring ammunition going into effect on July 1st, all purchases and transfers of ammunition will be subject to a background check and authorization from the California Department of Justice. That will allow our team to prevent the sale of ammunition to those who have no business having it. The reality is, if we're only monitoring gun sales, we're only looking at part of the problem and part of the equation. We're missing crucial opportunities to prevent gun violence in all of our communities unless we take action. And so July 1st is upon us. With these new laws, we'll be able to take a look at the full picture. And with the help of Prop 63 and the champions that help make Prop 63 possible, we'll keep our community safer. The California Department of Justice is ready to do its part in regulating and enforcing. Prop 63 gives us those tools. We intend to move forward. This is California. We are the leader. We don't look back. We don't backslide. July 1st, we'll be ready to go. With that, let me introduce the person who propelled Prop 63 and now our governor who continues to work on this issue, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Well, everything that could be said or should have been said has been said, but I guess not by everybody. So I am your last speaker, but I want to compliment everything. Everybody that stood up, everything that was said, for their framing, for their advocacy, for their leadership that goes back years and years. I can brag on Robin Thomas and the work that they're doing at the Law Center. They have been extraordinary leaders in this space. They have provided enormous support for legislative leaders like former Pro Tem Kevin DeLeon, who was one of our national leaders in this space that had been at this issue of ammunition for years and years, who demonstrably delivered on gun safety and positioned California as a national leader. I think in the spirit of the Attorney General, you can quote Pericles. Forget he was a former mayor of Athens. And he said to the Athenians, says, "We do not imitate, for we are a model to others." In so many ways, on the issue of gun safety from 1993 forward, California has led. We have seen as a consequence of that a significant decline in the gun murder rate in this state that goes well beyond the trend line nationally. Gun safety laws save lives. The extreme rhetoric on the other side that works against basic common sense has to be called out for what it is. The extreme rhetoric on the other side that denies simple background checks has to be called out. California has done that on guns, but at the end of the day, it is a perverse fact. Guns don't kill people. Unless gun is used as a blunt instrument, a gun is not particularly dangerous. A gun requires a dangerous component, and that's ammunition. It is rather curious why we advocate background checks on guns, but then we limit any consideration, at least nationally, to that dangerous component, ammunition. You walk into a Walgreens or CVS or a Rite Aid and you try to buy Sudafed, you got to provide some information. Right now, at this moment, as we speak, you can buy unlimited rounds of ammunition on your smartphone. Have it delivered to your doorstep the next day. You can be in a possession, as it was suggested, of a legal firearm that you may have assembled, or legal firearm that you got from a friend or family member, or found or purchased illegally, and you could buy legally unlimited rounds of ammunition with no questions asked. On Monday, that changes. California will become the first state in this country to require point-of-sale background checks on ammunition purchases. And that's a point of pride, and that should be a point of pride for every Californian. This does not deny people their right to purchase ammunition. Quite the contrary. It basically codifies what we're already doing for guns and makes a similar process for ammunition at point of sale. And because of Senator DeLeon's leadership and the codification of some of the rules that they had advanced to the legislature and what we were trying to do with Prop 63, the senator led an effort to actually streamline and make more efficient and effective these provisions starting on July 1st. So we're proud of that. We're not, however, proud of the National Rifle Association for holding in abeyance another component of Prop 63, and that's our effort to ban large capacity magazine clips, which is a common denominator in so many of these mass shootings. That's held up now in the courts, and we're waiting for adjudication in the Ninth Circuit. We are proud that the state is leading on relinquishment. A big issue that you've all written about, talked about, is this issue of backlogs and the challenge that we all have, the burden that's placed on the Attorney General's office, Department of Justice, to go after those that are in possession of illegal firearms that are on our prohibited purchasers list. We know who they are, but it's difficult to go back, to claw back and go after that backlog. What we're doing in the state, first state in the country, at adjudication, there's a relinquishment process, so going forward at least, we'll mitigate that backlog. No other state in the country, by the way, is doing that. We had done that in domestic violence. Now we're doing that for all felonies. That went into effect. Lost and stolen guns, to address the issue of gun trafficking, that went into effect, another component of Prop 63. But none of this is easy. It's stubborn. On the ammunition side, they're attempting to stop us, but we're ready to go on July 1st. For those that feel, well, there's been no notification, this passed in 2016. Yet all of 2017, all of 2018, I believe we're in 2019, and I don't know a gun dealer that's not familiar with this, who's not educated, folks, because I've heard plenty of stories of what folks are saying about what we're doing. And so I anticipate everybody is familiar with this. If they're not, they're about to be. I don't mean to be punitive in that respect. I don't mean to be negative in that respect, but I've heard some are concerned about notification. This passed in 2016. And so I think, to be fair, we've had plenty of lead time on this for the implementation and the application of these rules and provisions. As it relates to the Department of Justice, more resources were provided this year. I know it's still not enough. On the issue of prevention, more resources were put in the CalVIP program than in the past. I think we, Robin, close to tripled. More than tripled the CalVIP funding, which is not insignificant. And I want to applaud the legislature, Buffy Wicks and others, for their leadership and advocacy on that as well. Look, good enough never is in this space. I'll close. We've got to continue to be vigilant. We've got to continue to lead. We've got to lead by example. And that's what California does. That's what we're doing. And we're building on the incredible leadership. And that's why we invited him, of Senator DeLeon, who deserved to be here. And I just want to compliment him and, as you suggested, your colleagues over the course of the last decade that have truly delivered. So thank you all for being here.